Okay, great. Thank you, Joe. Joe is from ICCS, the Institute of Computing for Climate Science, at the University of Cambridge. You're going to talk about your team's experiences developing FTorch, carrying it beyond its original collaboration, original domain, and original project time, growing it into a fully fledged software project. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks very much. Yes, my name's Joe, and I'm from ICCS. I'm going to be talking about some reflections on how FTorch came to be, and a little bit on what FTorch is, but this isn't a technical talk, so I'll refer to other presentations for more information on FTorch. And this is, I didn't start FTorch by any means. It's existed for a couple of years before I joined ICCS last year. I'm just one of the current developers. This is, thanks to FTorch users and developers past and present. There we go. So firstly, I'll just say a little bit about ICCS to sort of set the scene of how we work on things. So ICCS is one of 4 virtual institute for scientific software centers, VIS, and these are all funded by Schmidt Sciences, the other 3 of which are all based in the US. And the way that ICCS is structured is that we have some directors, we have our operations team that does everything behind the scenes and works on the events. We have a group of ECAFs or sort of senior postdocs, you can think of them, who do their own research related to climate science. And then we have quite a large RSE team. So there's a team lead, 5 senior RSEs, and then about 7 or 8 standard level RSEs. And it's the RSEs that I'll focus on, but this is just sort of setting the scene for how we work. And we're unique amongst these VIS centers in that we provide software support to projects within VESRI, so the Virtual Earth Systems Research Institute, which is also Schmidt funded. And there's 6 different projects, which you'll see in the sort of VESRI pie image there on the left. And basically on a 3, 6, or 12-month basis, these different projects will request our time to provide support on climate modeling projects. We also work with Inigo Insurance, which is shown up there as one of our funders, and lots of other sort of smaller projects as well outside of these. And yeah, as I mentioned, we have this resource allocation process where we sort of, these requests will come in and we'll do some scoping and establish whether it's something we can work on or not. And typically there'll be 2 RSEs working on a project at a time. And typically RSEs will be working on 2 different projects at a time. So you'll be working in one pair and potentially one other pair. Now, in terms of finding the cross-cutting issue, for us, like we work in climate science, as you may be aware, like most climate science software is written in Fortran, and Fortran does not have inbuilt support for machine learning. One of the big things that people come to ask, we'll work with these projects and they'll say, okay, we've got this Fortran code base, we've developed this machine learning tool in PyTorch. How do we use them together? How can I've demonstrated that my PyTorch machine learning tool works sort of offline, just running some Python scripts on some training data, but how can I hook it up and test it out in my model? So for us, this sort of was an issue that came up in a few different places, and we realized it was this cross-cutting issue of sort of bridging between Python-based machine learning tools, which is the language that most of them use, and these Fortran models that are very common. So again, I won't go into the technical details. If you have access to the slides, you can click that link there for some of the technical details in a different talk. Unfortunately, the QR code is being blocked, but there's the FTorch repository as well. Thanks very much. So yeah, if you want to go to the FTorch repository, you can also scan that QR code there. And there'll be more FTorch related QR codes shortly. You click back on this. Thank you. Yeah, so going a little bit into the story of FTorch here. It started out as project work. So as I mentioned, so some of the VESRI projects were asking about this. So data wave was the main one. They work on gravity wave parameterization, some of which using machine learning. And that sort of sits within the community Earth system model, which is mainly developed at NCAR. So FTorch sort of had this, initially came up with this project, and so we could spend our project time developing this tool. And it was also used in the M² Lines project, which I'm pointing to with the other arrow. So again, during this time, when an RSE is working on that project, they can spend time working with FTouch. Since then, it's also been used in other projects. So this morning I gave a lightning talk in the Geoscience SIG session. So we're using FTouch for UKCA, it's one of the chemistry and aerosol code that's used by the Met Office and others. And then sort of independently of us as well, it's been used by ICON, so that's the weather model, the German Weather Service. And then also the UKAEA have been using it experimentally for fusion modeling. So it's mainly within the weather and climate domain, but it's sort of managed to go out of that. So in terms of finding resources for this, I've kind of hinted before that we work on a couple of different projects at a time. And the way that it's structured is that, so say for my time as an RSE, I'll spend 2 days of the week working on one project. I'll spend 2 days of the week working on the other one. And then the 5th day of the week is kind of for like everything else. So that includes admin, but then it also includes going to this conference, it includes preparing for this conference, it includes like reviewing JOS papers. There's a whole lot of stuff that goes in there. And then if you have some time to develop FTouch, that's like the last little bit. And so, like, as I was saying before, if you can spend project time on FTouch, that's great, but if not, then it becomes quite difficult for us to find that time. So that's one of the challenges we've been sort of working with recently. So one solution is to bring in new people. So we've had a couple of really great visiting students, and they've spent like 3 months specifically on FTouch, and I think both of them quite enjoyed the process, and it sort of inspired them to become RSEs as well, which is nice. So we must be doing something right. A couple of things to consider though there is that firstly, you need to find funding for those students, and we were fortunate that both of them were self-funded. Well, they had external funding. And then the other thing is that you need to sort of manage them and show them how to work in your team. So there is a time requirement there as well. They're not just completely free. Another way is to find some funding. So we have been successful in getting some internal funding for online training. So again, it's not a technical talk, but there's offline training and then there's online training. Online training is something that isn't supported by most of the other solutions to the problem that we're addressing with FTouch. And so we managed to get some backing from ICCS itself to buy out time for myself and my colleague Jack to work on developing that over the course of 6 months. Because again, it's this cross-cutting issue that we'd identified that the directorship agreed would be useful elsewhere. And we also managed to get funding from a local sort of organization to Cambridge called Cambridge Centre for Data-Driven Discovery. And with a small grant, we were able to get money to do compute resources for this particular project, do some research visits with potential collaborators to sort of do training workshops with them, but then also to sort of show them how they could make use of this new online training functionality. And then finally, we hosted a workshop last week that sort of brought together a lot of people that have ideas on machine learning coupling and best practices. So finally, I'll talk about finding new users. So again, I've mentioned there will be a couple of QR codes there. These are to our documentation website and JOS paper, and I think that this is one of the big successes for FTouch. So in some ways, it's a bit weird that we find out about FTouch being used in papers and in presentations, having never heard from that person. But it does mean that our documentation is very good. This is something people come and they say, oh, I was going to ask you about this, but then I read the webpage and it was there. So that's definitely benefited us, even if it feels a bit weird from our side. A wide variety of examples, again, has helped to sort of bring people in. And then having regular training events with recordings and slides available. So we have a summer school every year. We've done these research visits that I mentioned, and then conferences like this one. One question I have for the audience actually about the JOS paper is that we have a citation CFF, and we sort of mention this to people, but it is a bit of an uphill battle trying to get people to actually cite it. So if anybody has any thoughts, it'd be great to hear them. People you can talk to as well. So of course, people in other departments within your institution, because in universities, for example, can be quite siloed. So you have cross-departmental seminars that can help to bridge the gap a little bit. I've talked about potential external users. Potential organizational users is a big next step for us because FTouch is used by different researchers in different institutions for their projects and their papers. But if we could get organizations such as weather forecasting centers to use FTouch, that would be a really big step forward. And to a degree, NCAR are doing this. I realise that I'm about to run out of time. I'll just say briefly that also getting involved in parent communities such as Fortran and PyTorch can be good. And I will leave the summary on the screen because there's no time to read it. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Right, questions in the Slido. There we go. Okay, so first question, how do you handle DevOps in your team? Do you have a single person who is responsible, or do you all chip in?
Yeah. I mean, so for FTorch, we all chip in really. We do have a weekly meeting for FTorch, even though there's not like always someone allocated on it. And we'll sort of go through the currently available open issues then. So now I wouldn't say that there was a single person. It's fairly ad hoc at the minute, but when we do have at times when someone's funded to work on FTorch, it's a little bit easier. One of the difficulties of maintaining something when you're spending most of your time doing project work, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so other question there is, for a foundational library like FTorch, is there any community participation from users? Do you get contributions, presumably code contributions? And if so, how are these managed? If not, why not? Would you like to?
Yes, no, it's a good question. So I mentioned that one of the next big steps for us is organizational users. The other thing that I would say is, yeah, contributors from outside of ICCS. So we've had contributions from several different people in our team over the years, which has been really great. But only recently have we started to get contributions from the outside, and a few people have sort of spontaneously started doing that, which is really nice. Yeah, we would love to get more contributions from other people. So anyone that sees something that they'd like to add, or finds a bug, or is working in Fortran or PyTorch and has an idea, it would be great to hear from you. We are thinking about having a FTorch user workshop where there would be a sort of hackathon type event where people could do this, but that's just an idea at the minute.
Okay, so with external funding for cross-cutting tools, is there a tension with your main funder expectations, or are they happy to have their funding or the work that it funds displaced by the cross-cutting work?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Yep. I mean, we're very fortunate that our funder is happy with the way that we're doing things at the minute. I mean, I think the cross-cutting nature of it is kind of the main point here, because if it was something that wasn't going to feed back into other projects, or was only going to feed back into one project, then it might be a bit more contentious. But because of the cross-cutting nature of it, because like most people that work in climate are using Fortran, and many of those want to use machine learning, it's kind of something that we can foresee that even though some of the other Vesri projects aren't using it right now, they might want to use it in the future.
Great. Last one, what's the onboarding process like? Presumably that's kind of onboarding within the team at ICCS, or maybe it's onboarding for community members who are participating. Maybe could you talk to both?
Actually, yes. So it's sometimes it's a little bit mixed actually, because with ICCS we have this quarterly sort of resource allocation process. So like 3 months wise of the year. And when you join, it's very unlikely that you'll be just before the next 3-month cycle is going to happen. And so there'll be a few weeks at least where you're sort of in between projects and you're onboarding. And FTorch is actually one of the places that people often get sent for that time. So my story when I joined ICCS was that there was, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks before the next allocation, and some work needed doing on FTorch. And so it was kind of like, why don't you get into the team by contributing to this project? Which worked very well for me, and I guess it has for a couple of other people as well. We don't really have an onboarding process for FTorch right now. I think that's something that we'd like to develop, as we look for more external collaborators.
Brilliant, thank you, Joe. Round of applause.